It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Hey, it's Feedback Friday, and I'm going to focus entirely on the feedback from The Last of Us 2 video. Because it kind of went viral and got a lot more traffic than it normally does. And the other ones did okay, but that one went like, boo, and I was like, and it didn't go too bad. Normally, there's a lot more angries when something blows up like that. And there were some people who, in defending the game, totally ignored the fact I said, this is just my personal opinion, emphasis on personal. People are allowed to have personal opinions. Like, you shouldn't get offended that someone has trepidations in the game about a game or anything. But, what do you know? A woman voicing an opinion getting talked over on the internet. It's a day ending in Y, but that's a joke. This is not a joke. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. I want to address one criticism that, he hired a female co-writer, and that's a shield for everything. Here's the thing about writing in video games. A writer in a video game is not like a script writer. It's not like a TV writer. You have no say over the plot. You basically write dialogue. If it was a female narrative director, that would be one thing. If it was a female creative director, that would be one thing. But writers are basically given the plot and say, put meat on this skeleton. They have no control over how the game goes. And yes, the first Last of Us was a more collaborative effort than the last one, but we have no evidence of that here. It is still, people saying, it's a female writer, it must be okay. Maybe don't necessarily know what happened with Amy Hennig. I mean, none of us still totally know what happened with Amy Hennig, but that's kind of a bad argument considering what happened with Amy Hennig. But to me, that makes it worse. I'm going to tell a horribly violent revenge story using women as meat puppets to tell the story I want to tell. There's stuff I can't talk about in terms of that because it's kind of spoilery, but it is still a very male-centric story. The choices that matter, I won't spoil it, but it is a bad argument to say female writer, therefore it's okay, especially in video games. Because now we've just added another meat shield who's a real person on top of, the virtual meat shields that are Ellie and Abby, I guess we can say her name now because it's out now and the game's out today. But, that's no better, okay? If Ellie and Abby are likable at all, great, good writing. You got the dialogue in there. But the main story beats, a lot of people are saying in the reviews, I hated the choices. I didn't understand the choices. It's, and like, all right, what's this on one hand, it seems very much like part of the issue here is going to be that it's a Naughty Dog game. So you're basically playing a movie. Which is something you have to keep in mind when you go into a Naughty Dog game. Meaningful choice is not part of it. But, that's part of the reason why you shouldn't feel bad about elements of the combat that require you to do stuff that usually involves killing virtual people, because those are the only choices somebody has. And if the moral of the game is that sometimes killing is not a choice, sometimes killing is something you have to do, that's one thing. But that doesn't seem to be what it is. Other people go, you haven't played the game yet, this isn't fair. The whole purpose of the video was to talk about my expectations going into the game, as is done numerous times by numerous other people. And again, I said, this is my personal opinion, nothing more. It is totally fair to talk about, as somebody, because I'm I'm female, who is something of a minority in that way in games, who gaming companies insist they want more women to play games. I think it's totally valid to be able to say, this is why I'm not exactly looking forward to this game and wouldn't be buying it unless I was streaming it on Twitch. Like, seriously, if I'm streaming it on Twitch later today, probably around 2 o'clock. This video dropped at 11 o'clock. If you're trying to figure out time zones, it's Eastern time zone. But I think it's fair to say, like, I love the first game. I probably wouldn't be buying this game if it weren't for the fact that I'm going to be streaming on Twitch and having people going, hold me back, if it gets really bad. And it is because of that feeling of you want more female playable characters in games. All right, here's a game that's going to make the whole experience miserable, but you're going to feel forced to play it and you're going to feel coerced into liking it because female representation and games shouldn't have to be fun and you're a bad person if you don't like this game because #feminism. And that is crap. That is not the way this stuff works. That is not the way we're going to get progress. That is not the way that we're going to get people who are still not terribly comfortable with women in the video game space, unless they're in a perfectly docile position, like, a writer that can take all the fire, because guess what? If she's the reason everything's okay, guess who's going to get blamed? Like, it is wrong to insist that a woman be brought on as a writer and then she's responsible for all gender representation for all women. It doesn't work that way. Like, this, all the reasons that this is somehow okay just make everything more wrong. It just makes it more wrong. And like, the whole point is, if you just wanted to make a game and you just wanted to tell a story, I would have no issue with it. It is the philosophizing and the this is heavier, this is more intense, this is more significant than most video games really are. Like, it's that crap. And it's like, no, women do not exist so that a guy can build himself up into some sort of great man. That is not okay. And stuff like this doesn't help. Right? I know my volume just because I moved the microphone, and I like, okay, there was a thing in the news up here just this week up in Canada. There was a show called Body Break. It wasn't a show. It was like these interstitials that ran like during commercial time, and Participation sponsored them. They were in the 80s, and it was this, I keep wanting to call him Hal Johnson. He's not a Green Lantern, though it would be cool if he was. And Joanne McLeod. And they did exercise stuff. Everybody just thought, we had participation programs in schools. It was just a way to get kids up and moving and stuff like that. But Hal Johnson happened to be black. And Joanne McLeod happened to be white. And apparently, Hal Johnson came up this week, talked about the fact that they came up with the idea of Body Break in response to the racism he'd experienced at a sports network. Apparently, he was hired for the job, and then the guy who wanted to hire him, or did hire him, called back and said, I have to rescind the offer. We already have a black sportscaster. They don't want to. Yeah, apparently that happened. And TSN didn't deny it. They apologized for the shameful part of the company's history. So that's pretty much confirming, well, it's at least possible he's telling the truth. But so he came up with this idea to make a show that normalized black people and white people doing things together, that isn't constantly pointing out, look, black people and white people doing things as equals together. The whole point was to just normalize it by just making it seem normal. And that's the thing a lot of people don't understand about this sort of normalization, this sort of acceptance, that the best way to do it is to just have it there. The way far more Japanese games are right now than Western games. Like, here's a female character, here's a male character, they're both in the game, we like them both. Here's another female character, here's another male character, they're both in the game, we like them or we don't like them. They're just there, right? Rinse, repeat for gay characters, characters who aren't white, white characters too, like different races, different orientations, different gender identities, all that stuff. Just put them in there, and it has nothing to do with making a point about their identifiable characteristics. That tends to be how people get more comfortable. And then you get into the argument of, it's not my responsibility to make you comfortable. Well, then you have to make a choice about what you're trying to do here, right? Are you trying to get mad and make a point and virtue signal and show what a great human being you are? Well, then, yeah, you're right. It's not your job to make people comfortable. It is never a requirement that one person make another person comfortable. That is fact. What is also fact is, if you really want to make a difference and have things get better, you gotta put on the grown-up pants, be the bigger person, and actually do something that's going to be effective. And associating things with identifiable characteristics that unfortunately too many people in gaming are not comfortable with doesn't get us there. Now, again, that's fine, right? If you're just telling a story. But if you're trying to make a point, if you attach yourself to prominent feminists, label yourself an ally, and insist you're doing something great, well, then the paradigm shifts, and it is fair to say, are you doing more harm than good here? And let me tell you why I say that, because I've been around a long time. This is natural, okay? I haven't, like, the highlights I normally boost, they're down here. This, I got my witch stripe, okay? I've been playing games since 1981. I saw the whole Lara Croft phenomenon from the inside as well as the outside, meaning I played the Tomb Raider games, but I also saw how Lara Croft was depicted outside of games. I mean, she was on magazine covers, and I still have the copy of Entertainment Weekly from 1995 where she's on the cover. And there was one perception of Lara Croft that was held by the people who played the games. And then a completely different idea of the character by people who didn't play the games but were aware of the character through marketing and cultural phenomenon. And they weren't the same impression. Like, the people who actually played the game is, Lara Croft's a badass, I don't want to mess with her, right? With a side of, she's really sexy. What people who didn't play the games focused on was how sexy she was, how she was presented as a very sexualized, sexy character. Though she never actually even has a meaningful romance in the games. That's what's so weird about the whole thing. But, she looks good, right? She's conventionally attractive kind of thing. That was what most people responded to. And, some people dressed up like Lara Croft for Halloween, and then when cosplay got going more as cosplayers, they never played a single Tomb Raider game. And it was one of those things that the cultural phenomenon was larger than the people who actually played the game. Now, The Last of Us, because it's being developed for television again, who knows if that'll even get off the ground. But because it's being developed for television, once again, the cultural phenomenon of that is going to be much larger than the people who have played the game. And the perception of this world and these characters, the people who have played the game, once again, are going to get eclipsed by, the larger cultural factors. And unfortunately, that means commenting on the marketing is fair and going, hold up, guys, we got to have a talk here. Because ironically, the content I did last week kind of dovetails into what's going on with The Last of Us, because keep in mind, we're in an age where a prominent children's author, J.K. Rowling, is still perpetuating this idea that any woman who doesn't appear appropriately feminine could be a male predator in disguise. Okay, that is her theory. Don't take my word for it. Look it up on her blog. That's what she basically said. If we give trans people the right to identify as their gender, men are going to stalk changing rooms and bathrooms dressed as women. Like, that's what she's claiming. And so now we have a game putting forth a character that a lot of people assumed was trans or could be trans, just because she's that Neil Druckmann fetish of that really muscular woman. I don't know if she's trans or not. I don't care. And then you've got Ellie, who's sort of boyish, and they're associated with a game that is brutally, brutally violent. And not just in the game, in the marketing, right? And the more muscular, taller, less traditionally feminine woman is apparently, now the game twists it apparently, but she appears to be the violent perpetrator, putting mousy little Ellie through all this suffering, right? Like I said, this is the impression left with people who haven't played the game. And it's fair to say maybe they should have focused a little more on what you can actually do in the game and a little less on how brutally violent it was. Because there's got to be a purpose to the violence, right? I mean, I thought the Gears of War 3 marketing was so brilliant, right? Their tagline was brothers to the end. And it had a double meaning, but it contextualized the journey, which was violent and sad and really tough on the feels in places, but it was ultimately an affirming, uplifting story of people who mattered to each other. And, I mean, the leak might have done them a favor because everybody's going in kind of prepared for at least part of what's to come. That a lot of people, if they weren't prepared for it, might never get over. Because it's like, what? No, the story we wanted cut brutally short by this. And of course, the story we really wanted was... never mind, spoilers. This matters. And it's important to kind of go... These are my impressions going into the game. Like, you know, scientific method, you sort of state your hypothesis, state where you sort of are going in. Because you know what? It's possible I might love this game. I might. Who knows? Things can happen, right? I hated The Witcher 2. I love The Witcher 3. I only played The Witcher 3 because I got it free with a graphics card. True story. And I ended up loving it. Games can surprise you, right? It's possible this game will surprise me. But the fact that I am so dreading it that people are actually saying to me, if you don't want to play it, that's okay. You don't have to. I feel like I do, though, because this is kind of my job and this is a major cultural touch point. And it just seems so baffling and odd. Not that an incredibly violent game is sort of a required thing if you're a pro in this, but that a franchise championed by people who oppose brutally violent games, usually, is doing this. And those people who are normally opposed, who have a connection to this game, are strangely silent because they've popped off before games were released. They've commented on trailers. You know, all this is like a marketing and advertising analysis is totally valid. As long as you're saying I'm talking based on the marketing, not the game. But it's not just about who likes the game. It's not just about who's supporting the game and who's not supporting the game, and how Neil Druckmann needs to learn to pull a Cory Barlog and let people shit their pants and scream and yell and say it's going to be awful and say, just trust us, and then let the game come out and have it be God of War and have everybody just love it. And have him go, thank you very much. We're really glad you like it. Like, that's a class act, right? That's somebody who's like, I understand that this is part of the process. I'm taking a risk. This is a violent franchise. Not everybody's going to get it. Doing it right. You know, or Hideo Kojima, who deliberately mucks with people's perceptions. Doing it absolutely deliberately. And then everybody's like, oh my God, I love BB. I shouldn't have loved BB. I hated BB at first. By the end, I'm like, BB. He knows what he's doing. He's not complaining, right? When you're in there fighting with Jason Schreier because Jason Schreier objected to a Schindler's List comment that somebody else made, you need to step away and you need to check your own mental health. Because you are stepping on people's ability to just take the game for what it is and not be distracted by what a superciliary, self-important asshole you're acting like. The best thing to do for a video game creator, if he wants or she wants her game to get the best possible shot, is step back. Unless you are prepared to be a walking, talking, breathing embodiment of what you want the player's expectations to be going in, like Kojima does. That's like an art form, what that dude does. Tip of the hat. Like, it took me a long time to get it. And then when I got it, I'm like, damn. You know, I'm a convert now. But I got converted because he allowed me to have my preconceptions and didn't invalidate them. And that's what we need much more in gaming. We need people to be allowed to have personal trepidations and be able to say this so marketing can go, all right, you know what? We probably overdid it there. Because I've played games that are brutally violent, right? But it wasn't in the marketing material. And when I'm there, it's different. I'm not dreading it. You know, it's like you're afraid to go to the dentist until you're actually there. And then when you're there, it's not nearly as bad, but it's the dreading it that's worse. That's what they did with the marketing on this game. And I definitely think, I also think that the really, really heavy embargo on what you could talk about might backfire, because now people are really, really intent on talking about the things they weren't allowed to talk about. And that's part of the thing where I actually appreciate when they say don't mention these things. I don't necessarily think people should be talking about the ending of a game anyway in a review, because that's a spoiler. But it really says something, doesn't it, that the people who make the games think that the people who review the games are so unprofessional that they need to be told, don't spoil the ending, mother, you know? And I just realized I should give a shout out to a Twitter user who I put out a thing saying, I wonder how many women were able to review The Last of Us 2. I wonder how many viewpoints there were. And some people were just assholes about it. But a woman, I don't know if this is her real name, by Millicent Thomas. She's a writer for Games Radar. She, and I retweeted this, but she compiled a ton of reviews written by women. So Polygon, GameSpot, Digital Trends, Trusted Reviews, Tech Radar, The Guardian, GameBite. She can play that, which is an accessibility review. T3, Paste Magazine. Somebody did it on her Patreon. I don't know if somebody gets it just for Patreon. Pretty Much Geeks, Eurogamer, US Gamer, Android Central, Time Magazine, The Hollywood Reporter, Wired, Coalition, some YouTube stuff, and Prima Games. I'm calling them out because Millicent Thomas bothered to compile them. Good for them. Those are some pretty major outlets who allowed women to review the game. And why am I suggesting that this is something that should be held up for praise? Because keep in mind, I reviewed games for a really, really, really long time. Female reviewers tend to go to the back of the line when it comes to high-profile titles like this because, one, we don't tend to have as much seniority, and they tend to want the biggest name on a site reviewing these big titles. So good for Polygon, good for GameSpot, good for Time, good for all those services, because normally it doesn't matter. In this case, it does, because this game is being marketed on the idea of inclusion for women in gaming by a studio that had one of the most recognizable professionals in gaming today. Amy Hennig has major name recognition. She leaves under not great circumstances, and they want feminist cred. I'm still not okay with that. And holding up another woman as a shield, like I said, doesn't make it any better. So thank you to Millicent. I'm really glad. If there is one positive thing that comes out of this, I'm really, really glad to see so many high-profile vehicles giving female reviewers a chance to review a big-name game. More importantly, their reviews were varied. They were well-written, well-reasoned, well-explained, professionally written. And there was a massive diversity of opinion. You don't tend to see that much diversity of opinion. I was struck by every review I read had a slightly different opinion on things. Some people thought some things worked. Some people thought other things worked. There were meaningful discussions of the gameplay. I thought the Guardian one was actually the least helpful, but hey, that's one. The rest of them were like really good. This is what we should be seeing in game reviews. And, it brings to mind that old saying that women have to do twice as well to be thought half as good. But, in this case, a high tide raises all boats. Consumers will be more informed because they did their jobs really well. So that made me really happy. So there's one thing that's really happy. But seriously, if someone starts off something by saying, this is just my personal opinion before I've played the game, don't criticize them for having a personal opinion when they haven't played the game. This stuff does matter because, let's face it, the belief is female playable characters will make women want to play a game. I don't subscribe to that. I've seen no real evidence. It's more important for women, but there are other gameplay elements that seem to be more important for women playing a game. But if that's the marketing thing, then whether the marketing is actually appealing to women, that matters. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Hope to see you